Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be a tea time chat all about why I think the need for swatches is absolutely useless. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. If you're into eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of your makeup, then definitely stay tuned because I think in today's sort of video essay opinion piece that I have to share with you is quite a controversial topic. I always get so many requests from people to include more swatches in my videos. And today I'm sort of using this video as well to try and explain to you why I think I don't have to. I've already mentioned before that I actually have a lot of content already up, sometimes in the blog, sometimes as a short, or as another video, and then I'm like, just go and watch the other video. It's not that big of a deal. But so many people want swatches in every single video you do, and today I want to explain to you why this demand for swatches is absolutely ridiculous, and that if that's you, you need to think again. And if you're new here and you've never seen one of my videos, hi, my name is Maaike, I'm from the Netherlands, I have fair skin with a culture neutral undertone which greatly skews my makeup preferences, and because I have been buying, trying and reviewing makeup for more than a decade, I have some very strong opinions as well. So let me just get down to it, but if you'd like to join the Snow Angel gang, all you need to do is click the subscribe button down below. So yeah, today is a bit of a spicy topic as I mentioned, but before we get to it, ow, that's hot. I've got myself a cup of tea, yay! The concept is actually still working. I only just made it, so that's why it's really hot, but this is what I'm drinking. The Puka lemon, ginger, and manuka honey tea, which is one of my favorites actually. So I need to stock up because I only have about 3 baggies left. So let me explain to you what today's video is going to cover. I'm going to be covering, of course, why I think swatches are useless, and I have a couple of different subtopics that I'd like to go over just to unpack why I think this demand for swatches is just a little bit weird to me as someone who's tried a lot of makeup. But one of the points I will be making is that what a swatch will mainly give you is an idea of how pigmented a makeup product is. So the second half of this video is going to touch upon why swatches and therefore pigmentation are not necessarily going to be indicative of makeup quality. So if you swatch something, all you're getting is how pigmented something is, but that doesn't tell you anything about the quality of that product. And then I want to unpack that. I feel those two topics kind of went hand in hand for me in my brain, so I hope I can narrate the story as fully as possible, of course. So let me just get down to it and start unpacking why I think swatches are useless. Number one, if you've ever seen a swatch, whether it's on my channel, anyone else's channel, Instagram, TikTok, very often swatches are done by sticking your finger into a product or, you know, applying it straight from a bullet or a doe foot onto like the back of your hand or your underarm or something like that. This is known as a finger swatch, and a finger swatch is very different in the way then the product is going to be applied than when you were to use it as part of your makeup routine. So, for instance, if I do my eyeshadow, I tend to use quite a few brushes to get it done. The only time I will ever use a finger to apply my eyeshadow is if I have an intense shimmer that I want to intensify a bit more and use the oil of my fingers to make sure it's a bit more vibrant. If I'm doing my cheeks, I tend to only use fingers if I'm using cream products. Especially cream blush is something, and cream highlighter as well, is something I like to apply using fingers. But for instance, if something looks a little too intense, I tend to go over it with a brush to sheer something out. So that again is not going to be a great pigment like representation of what the product can do. And if it's, for instance, something like a lip product or like a liquid eyeshadow or something like that, very often you will sheer it out as you're applying it, and it's not like the full-on swatch like you would when you put it on your underarm. So I feel that because swatches are done using fingers, it can never show you what a product can actually do once you start roping in different makeup tools. And most people nowadays, especially I feel maybe like a decade or 15 years ago when there was less information out there about makeup, people were using like the, you know, those little sponge tip applicators that you got for free in a palette. People were using that or fingers, and nobody was really blending anything unless they were a makeup artist. But I think by now, most people have, you know, access to makeup brushes. They can be bought at a pretty affordable price point. I'm not sure yet whether it's up by the time I'm filming this, but I will actually be going over some of my favorite makeup brushes that I personally have in my collection this month, and to just show you what I reach for on a daily basis. Sort of like my core picks as well. But if the minute you start using brushes, your makeup is just going to go on at a completely different level, and it's just not the same as a finger swatch, which is the first reason I just wanted to touch upon here, because if you see a finger swatch online, that's not going to tell you how it then applies with a brush, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Even if you were to swatch it, some products are simply intended to be sheer and to be something that barely shows up. I, for instance, have a very hard time getting highlighters to, like face highlighters, to show up in like my swatches when I do them for the blog. Whether I'm applying them to my face, but also on the back of my hand, especially if they have some sort of like flash or flip, it's very difficult to get a good representation of that in a picture unless you doctor it somehow or you use like certain lighting, and we'll get to that in a minute. So I feel that a lot of products fall by the wayside because they don't swatch well. This is Tarte Amazonian clay blushes are actually notorious for this. They hardly go on when you use your fingers, but then when you use them with a brush and you apply them to your cheeks, they're very pretty. So it's again sort of coming back to the first point I just made, but some products are simply intended to barely show up when you use them with fingers. They need a tool to show up to begin with. And I feel that that is something that if you're demanding swatches, it's just not something that's really gonna show up, which is why when I do dedicated review products, I include a finger swatch, and I also include what it looks like on my face with a before and after. This is what my face looked like before I put on the product. This is what it looked like after I put on the product, especially with highlighter, with bronzer, with blush, with foundations, with concealers. I always include those kind of things so that you can actually see what it does. And then, for instance, with eyeshadows and also especially with lipsticks, I tend to do those kind of videos as well, where I sort of film and you can see what the eye look looks like when I actually apply it. I have quite a few shorts that I did in recent months where I've shown you different looks that I do, but I tend to do the same look every single time. I actually am planning on doing a short series in February where I'm going to go over like all of the different techniques, how I like to create eye looks. And pretty much that's foolproof for me every single time. And I think that that's definitely something that also goes into how your makeup looks once you start applying it. So then my main point that I'm gonna draw part of this video on as well, so this would be the third reason why I think swatches are useless, is that a swatch does not tell you anything about the performance. The only thing it will give you is level of pigmentation and maybe what color you're dealing with. But even that can be skewed because if you put it on the back of your hand, your skin is going to be perhaps a little bit different than, for instance, the skin on your lips. But we'll get to that in a minute because that's another point I want to make. So swatches in general, even if I leave out the fact that this is mainly a social media thing, it tells you absolutely nothing about what the product can do for you. The only thing it tells you is this is what it looks like, this is how pigmented it is. Which is, if you look at it in a pan, you get the exact same information. So do you really need a swatch? Especially in every single video that someone does. Like if I do certain videos, like favorites videos or something, sometimes people, oh, you need to swatch everything out. No, I really don't. And then my fourth point that I want to make is swatches are useless by now, especially because hardly anybody swatches in where it can even be a good representation of what the product can do. And what do I mean with that? A lot of the swatches that you see online are done using stencils, or people will tape up their arm to create certain shapes, Or I believe you can even buy these from like eBay or Etsy or whatever. Like you get a nice snowflake design and then you pull the stencil away and you're left with the actual swatches. But in order to fill those stencils and to make sure that every corner is covered in eyeshadow, you need to rub your finger into the pan and also really rub your finger all over that stencil or that outline that you've created. So it's not gonna be a representation, it just looks pretty. Especially if it's done like, I've seen dolphins and leaves for the fall time and like snowflakes in the winter time and sunglasses if it's like the summer. And like for every season and occasion, like sometimes people will swatch out something in the shape of Christmas trees. And I'm like, that says absolutely nothing about the product. You might as well just show the palette at that point. And by extension to this, so swatches not being a good representation of the product because of how the swatches are presented to you, I also want to point out lighting, especially the kind of lighting that makes things look really sparkly. I'm thinking this kind of swatches you see from places like Pat McGrath, Charlotte Tilbury. Yes, they have swatches, but the lighting in them is so atrociously misleading, where everything looks like super sparkly and interesting, and then you get it home and you're like, that's what it does? So I actually know that this is also a trick that they use in makeup stores where they have certain overhead lighting that will make everything just look extra sparkly. So it's always recommended if you do swatch something in a store to go outside in natural lighting to see what it actually looks like. And I feel that online, whether it's people using filters or flash or a certain kind of like extra blurry footage so that you can see the actual sparkly goodness of the shadow, like those kind of things are all tricks to try and entice you to buy products to make them look better than they actually are. And I feel this is especially the case with brands that sell multi-chromes. I have been so disappointed with some of the multi-chromes I've purchased in the past, and that's because brands just use particular lighting to showcase their products in a much better light than when you just apply it to your eyes, and it's just not going to look the same. So lighting matters, filters matter, stencils matter, whether those have been used. So if swatches look incredibly uniform, the minute you see that, you need to start asking yourself, like, hey, is this a good representation of the product? The reason I swatch things is to just show you, here's a finger swatch. This is the initial impression. But for me to really be able to tell whether a product is good, I have to apply it, because else I just can't be sure. So yes, my fourth reason for telling you swatches are useless is because they are very easily manipulated into making the product look prettier than it actually is. That's just the way it is. The fifth point I want to make is sort of tying in with point number 4. These are the kind of swatches that are visually incredibly pleasing, and I know that that's why people want me to do it, because seeing someone swatch something is just incredibly satisfying to see. I personally love it. Like Hannah Louise Poston does this, and also Laura May Beauty does this, where they just like dig their finger into that pan and you get this really nice rich swatch. And it's so incredibly satisfying, but at the same time, I'm yelling at my screen when I see them do that, because they are two creators who I suspect have hit pan on product just because of how they swatch it and how often they swatch it in their videos. Like, they haven't hit pan on an eyeshadow because they've used it so much. Yeah, for some part, yes, that definitely factors into it. But also because they kind of dig around in that pan and then this really rich swatch is the result. And I'm like, oh no, you're ruining perfectly good makeup. And this is another reason why I personally don't like to go in and swatch things all the time. It's because the oils of your finger, every single time you go into that eyeshadow pan, you run the risk of creating hard pan. And I know of creators who are saying, I don't like swatches because I don't want to stick my fingers in there. I think it's gross. It's just not a thing that I like to do. And then I'm like, yeah, I get your point. I think that if you go in with clean fingers, there really isn't that much of a risk. But for instance, if there's any sort of residue from a moisturizer on your fingers, or if you've just done your primer and then you swatch something out, the risk just is there for you to create hard pan, to ruin the product, to go through it incredibly quickly, especially if you want to do these very visually pleasing sort of swatches that I just mentioned. Even if you like use the stencils, like it takes a lot of product to get like to fill out the design fully and to have it go on opaque, far more than what you would use if you use it on your eyes. So I just feel it's bad representation, as visually pleasing as it is. I don't want to ruin my makeup because I'm here to get use out of my makeup, to use it organically, because I'm using my makeup as I'm going about my day, as I'm going about my life. I'm not only here to create content with it. And I feel there are certain products that I buy to create content with, for sure. But not everything I do. It's like my channel is much more focused on like just filming because I've been using certain things and I want to get more use out of things, and that's why I'm doing these videos. But for me, this like content perspective of like it's all about the content, I don't mind if I ruin it, is very irksome to me. And it sort of harks back to some other points I've made in the past, but it completely defeats the point of social media and content creators in general. I mean, this entire platform and the entire beauty community got started because people were fed up with beauty magazines not giving good representation of makeup products and what it could do for regular people. Like way back in the day, I remember this. You would have these spreads in Vogue where you would just get some like broken up eyeshadow or like, you know, nail varnish that was dripping out of a bottle, and then it would give you like the price point and then it said Dior whatever, and that was all we got. That was the beauty content before. And I feel that because of social media, Instagram, TikTok, you're seeing this trend going in that sort of direction again. And I was like, no. We have a beauty community with people talking about makeup so that we as regular consumers can get a feel for what things look like in our day-to-day lives so that we make better decisions and we don't have to rely on sales representatives in stores and very unrepresentative images in beauty magazines. But if you are into swatches, you're actually favoring the beauty magazine kind of strategy over the realness of what online content can also offer you. So for me, I get it. It's incredibly satisfying to see everything swatched out. I definitely do some level of swatching on this channel because I love a good swatch myself, but I don't feel the need to do it in every single video I do. I will just refer you to other content I already have. Why not? And finally, and I think the biggest reason why I think we should be very careful with this demand for swatches is something I've already touched upon at the start, but it's not just tools that influence how your makeup will look. It also has to do with the skin it goes on. And I would like to take lipsticks as an example here. So very often, if I have a couple of lipsticks, I will swatch them either on my hand or on my underarm, because that's like a very nice even canvas to swatch on. However, my lips are not this color. Naturally, it's actually much closer to the lipstick I'm wearing today. So actually what I have been told as a trick, I think this was a Ray Morris or Bobbi Brown trick that I read about years ago, is to swatch a lipstick on the tip of your finger, because the inside of your fingertip is roughly the same shade as your natural lip color. I'm not sure if that's true, but I haven't tried it in a very long time. So if you're swatching lipstick on the back of your hand, the color of the back of your hand is going to influence what that lipstick looks like. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing lip swatch videos so often, is because I found that a lot of raved about lipstick colors just didn't look quite right on me, because I have naturally quite pigmented lips that have a cooler undertone. They can look a little purpley almost. And that just greatly influences what lipstick colors and like how they look on me and how I wear them and whether they wear off nicely or not, because once that natural color comes through, I mean, this is an issue for me with a lot of nude lipsticks, is that purpliness then comes through. Peachy shades therefore don't work for me because it just doesn't cancel out the purpliness I've got naturally going on my lips enough for it to look nice. So that's why I always do a swatch on my lips so you can actually see what the color looks like. But if you're only seeing a lipstick swatched out on the back of someone's hand or their underarm, that's really not gonna fly. So same thing, of course, for your eyelids. My eyelids have a very different kind of skin than the back of my hand or my underarm. I use brushes when I apply my eyeshadow. So whether I'm using a very fluffy brush or a very dense brush or a packing brush or whatever it is, or a very detailed brush, all of those brushes are going to influence the way the product is going to sit on my eyelids and how it's going to perform and how it's going to wear throughout the day. The way I apply my foundation, I mean, sure, a foundation swatched on the back of your hand can give you a feel for the color, maybe the finish it has, but the way it looks on your face once it's blended out and you've used, concealer and powdered under or over it, whatever you want to do, that's of course going to influence what the full thing looks like. Like today, I'm wearing a foundation that's actually too dark for me. And the reason why you can't tell is because I blended it all the way down my neck and I've used bronzer. That's the way I can get away with it. But it's actually like 2 shades too dark for me, which is not a good look. But straight on, like this, filming a video, nobody can tell. But nobody should go looking in like what I've got going on in my neck here, because that's a bit of a mess. So I feel that swatches, finger swatches, because they are done on different areas of the body than where you would use it, not using the tools you would necessarily use it, can just never give you a good enough idea of what a product can do. And that's sort of like the main part of what I wanted to discuss in today's video. But like I mentioned at the start, I wanted to take that train and go into, but then what is going to be representative of good makeup quality and why aren't swatches good enough to cut it? So I already mentioned that swatches are only going to be giving you information on pigmentation and maybe color. And because of that example with the lipsticks, I wanted to sort of scratch out color, because whatever like coloring you've got, like if you have a lot of redness in your face, that's perhaps going to affect what the rest of your makeup looks like. So, and if there's not a lot of redness on the back of your hand, that's of course not going to happen. So your skin, your tools you use are just going to influence the way the makeup works. And that's why I think we have to be very careful with thinking that, oh, as long as I could see a swatch, I can see how good this product is. That's not the case, because pigmentation is definitely something that became important as social media grew. So as social media became a more important part of brand strategies, more people on Instagram and TikTok especially, we see this push for pigmentation. And I would like to say instant gratification, because that's what this comes down to. It's all about instant results from products, where sometimes an instant result isn't exactly the sign of good quality product at all. I mean, with a blush, for instance, if it goes on and it's way too pigmented, it's just not gonna work for you. So I feel that because of visual representation of makeup in media, be it Instagram where it's pictures or TikTok where the drive for like instant result products seems to be even more so, because you need to get your point across in like 30 seconds. I feel that those kind of platforms have really led to people expecting creators to just include swatches all the time, because that's what visually pleasing, that's what sells, that's what gets people talking. But here's the thing, because of that push for it, other products are snowed under. So if products don't give instant results, for instance, skincare. I follow quite a bit of skincare content, but skincare, good skincare, is a matter of doing something long term. over time, which social media and the way how fast this world moves just isn't made for, which is why I don't request. Like, a lot of skincare brands are out there trying to look for people to represent them, and I turn down almost every single offer because they want you to get the product in and say something positively about it in 2 weeks' time. I'm terribly sorry, but a full skin cycle is 2 months at least. In my case, I tend to use up a product completely, or almost, like 2/3 of the way done, until I feel okay reviewing anything. So that's why I tend to keep skincare reviews sort of pretty close to the chest, because I just can't review at the rate that brands need me to review at, because my skin is sensitive, because my skin is more mature, and if you switch up your skincare routine that often, it can hurt your skin. You can actually get yourself to become more prone to allergies and reactions simply because you're overdoing it on the products. I tend to not change out my products all that often for that reason. But that's not what social media wants. And I feel that that also goes into the realm of like swatches and like overly pigmented shadow. I get it. It looks stunning on camera. But does it look stunning when you go out and live your life under artificial lighting in your office? I don't know, but like, you know, that ceiling sort of fluorescent lighting, it's not flattering on anyone. Let's just get started there. Let alone you wearing this super bold makeup. Sure, bold makeup is great, and I think that it can cater to a lot of people if you're trying to be more creative. But the amount of creators who I see do makeup for Instagram and then never wearing makeup when they go out and live their lives, to me that's like two different things. I cannot wrap my head around it. I mean, if that's you and you like doing that, then that's absolutely fine. Of course, I don't wear makeup every single day either, because I just don't feel the need. But yeah, I tend to test out, like someone asked this in the comments, I tend to test out makeup as I'm going about my life. Not because it's like a separate thing, because I don't have time for that. I mean, I work a regular job. I have friends and family and events I want to get to. I'm not just going to sit here and like do my makeup and like, ooh, look at this. And it's just, I think definitely under the influence of Instagram at first, but now also TikTok, that we get this influx of products need to perform straight away. We don't have time for this kind of mentality. And the need for swatches goes in that, because as long as I see a swatch, I can tell whether it's a good product. But here's why. And here we're coming full circle. These overly pigmented, great swatching products aren't always great for anyone over the age of 25. The minute you get a wrinkle, it's not gonna look great. This full bead glam makeup that we are still seeing everywhere, it's just not gonna work. Sometimes sheer layers is what works best for some people. So over the age of 25, it's just not probably going to work for you anymore. And I love this actually about Kelly Gooch, because she created a TikTok about that viral concealer trend where people put concealer in their inner corners and on their outer corners of their eyes. And she was like, I'm over 25, this is not working for me, and I'm much better off just using a little bit of concealer in my inner corner because I've got some fine lines on the outer edge of my eye, and so this concealer hack doesn't work for me. And I knew right off the bat when I saw people doing that, and all of a sudden everybody started doing it, no matter who they were, I was like, I know it wouldn't work for me because I've got crepey eyelids right here on the ends, and I'm always like doing this to like tap my concealer back into place, and also down here because that's where I've got some lines going on, and I don't mind it because it's part of the process, it's part of life. I really don't mind it, but I also realized that that trend was not going to work for me, and I feel that that's something that people also forget, like not everybody is under 25, so it's not going to work for everyone. And then people get upset with you for not doing things a certain way. It's like, girl, I know what works. Trust me. And last but not least, this focus on overly pigmented makeup is just not going to work on all skin tones. I think that super pigmented makeup is incredibly important for people with deeper skin tones because they have run into problems for years that things just don't show up for them. But I need the makeup that doesn't show up on deeper skin tones because like, who am I? Like, especially right now, the lighting is playing a trick. Hold on. I mean, I'm super duper pale. So if I get these products in that are incredibly pigmented, I actually run into the issues of things being difficult to blend, not working very well. I look like a clown. I've had eyeshadow that was so pigmented that it looked murky and dirty on my lids when I tried to blend it because it didn't go with my undertone. I don't need overly pigmented things. I therefore don't need to see swatches of everything I do. A swatch can be helpful for a quick comparison or, you know, maybe to just get a first impression, but it will never ever tell you anything about how the makeup actually works and whether it's actually going to be a good quality product for you, which is why I always include some extra steps when I do my full reviews. Yes, that's why. So what do I think is going to tell you more about how good something is quality-wise? Quality makeup, yes, it needs to be pigmented enough for the intention of the product. So if the product is intended to be sheer, don't expect it to be full. Like, this is the issue I see with so many people swatching these like toppery shades and then being very upset with it not going on opaque. It wasn't intended to go on opaque, so no, it's not going to show up like that. Secondly, wear time. Wear time. How long something lasts is far better indication of how good quality a product actually is. Does it last on the skin? Does it disappear? Does it crease? Does it whatever? Does it break up? All that goodness. And thirdly, I think the most important denominator of a good quality product is how easily it will blend. Good blendability, in my book, is far more important than how pigmented it is, because pigmentation can be built up. But here's the thing about blending and makeup in general. This is actually a line I stole from a chef I follow on TikTok. He always says, when it comes to cooking, remember, you can add things, but you can never take it away. So for me, these overly pigmented products, no. I don't need them to go on instantly kapow. I want them to blend. And the thing we've seen with very pigmented, especially in eyeshadow, the thing that is, how should I say that? The thing that is lost when having incredibly pigmented shadows is often blendability. Because what happens with very pigmented shades, they stick down and you can no longer move them. And if you blend them out, they're going to get patchy or it's just not going to look great. So what do you see a lot of people do? They pat things on and then they sort of fluff a brush around it. But that's not blended makeup. I don't know, like, what happened to MUAs teaching people how to blend? Like, that used to be the thing, like, blending and how you can use another shade to blend it and how you can blend shades together. That is actual pretty makeup. Not these, like, super intense things where it's like, wait, what? Concealer doesn't blend anything, people. It cuts creases, it cuts something into it. But that's not about a blended look. That's going to give you a harsh line. So what it really boils down to for me, because these three things, pigmentation, wear time, and blendability, are actually not just qualities that a product has. It also has to do with your makeup skills. If you learn how to do makeup for you, so the tips and tricks of how to build up pigment, how to blend your products, how to make sure that you get the most wear time out of your products is something you need to figure out for you. So following tips of tricks of actual makeup artists, it's so much more important than seeing a swatch from a creator or seeing someone apply it and then never use it again. So I think that if you were to focus on makeup techniques, getting good tools that you can use for years to come. I mean, investing in brushes is so important. I've had brushes that I've had for more than a decade and they still work for me. And I still use them on a day-to-day basis and I haven't found anything that works better for me. So learning what looks right on you, what techniques work on your skin. If you have very oily skin, you may need to do other things to make your makeup last all day than what I like to do. So making sure that you focus much more on how you apply the makeup and how you can make work things for you is far more important than a swatch, because depending on how hard someone pressed into the pan and whether they used a stencil and what lighting they've used, swatches are incredibly misleading. And I love how many people watching my videos just love to be misled. And I'm like, okay, go be misled somewhere else. That's not what my life is about. My swatches are gonna happen in natural daylight. I'm not gonna use any filters. I've never used a filter ever in my life. On Instagram sometimes, but just the standard ones that you find on the Instagram app. But I've never used, like on my blog, everything, the only filter I use is that I cut the picture into a square shape. That's as far as it goes. And I have to say that this camera that I'm filming on is incredibly forgiving, because it makes me look far more flawless than it actually is. So many people always comment saying, oh, but your skin looks amazing. Trust me, it really doesn't. I mean, maybe you can see, but I've got these incredibly deep grooves in my forehead from frowning and just general facial expressions, the way I live my life. And I currently don't have a camera that really shows you what I see when I look in a mirror. I mean, I've got milia, I've got texture, I've got fine lines. I mean, I've got the whole shenanigans. I've got redness. I don't have acne or things like that, but I definitely have certain skin concerns that I do try to focus on. But yeah, no filters. I try to film with artificial lighting as little as I can, just for makeup looks really, and lip swatches and all that, so that I can try and control the lighting conditions throughout the video. And that's pretty much it. I try to use it as little as I can precisely for that reason. And I don't swatch in every single video, because it tells you absolutely nothing. And I wished more people would realize this and would stop demanding people doing swatches. You want to see swatches? There are about 1 million other content creators out there that possibly already have a swatch up before I do. You do not need it in my video for sure. And if I've already swatched it somewhere else, I don't mind swatching something like once or twice, maybe 3 times, but I don't want to swatch it every single time I show it on camera, because it will just ruin the product, and I will not be able to use the product anymore in my day-to-day life if I keep swatching it for you guys. So that's just what I wanted to share with you today. Let me know in a comment down below what thoughts you have. Of course, keep it respectful and all that. So far, you guys have been really nice. I'm really loving our little tea time chat family. I love how this video never gets a lot of views, but the comments are, like, the comment section is always on fire. You guys always have some great input. So I would love to know from you guys how you feel about this. Do you agree with me? Do you not? I don't care where you stand. These are just my thoughts, and I thought I could share them with you. So thank you so very much for being here today. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make several videos every single week. I'm doing shorts every single day now. Check out my 31 days of one and done shadows. In case you haven't, I have a separate playlist for that. So in case you missed any, you can like catch up and see all that. And there is a link in the description box down below where you can shop some of my favorite products. That's part of an affiliate scheme, so if you do shop through there, just know that I would make a bit of a commission if you choose to shop through my Shop My Shelf. So thank you so very much again. Have a great day, everybody, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!